This is a place where we talk about leadership through brain, heart, and nerve. And today is a little different. It's about becoming a kind of leader who people can remember, not because of the authority, not because of the power. It's more about humanity. So I'm very delighted to welcome Sadika Kebbi with us, the transformational leadership expert, executive coach, TEDx speaker, best-selling author, founder, and CEO of Kun Consulting. She has got 20 plus years of experience, and she has been empowering leaders through emotional intelligence, neuroscience, storytelling, and purpose driven leadership. Welcome, Sadika.
Thank thank you so much, Aisha. It's an honor to be here on that platform. Looking forward for our conversation.
I have a very out of the box question for you to start. So, I read your bio and I know your work, right? And I know a little bit, not a lot, because the way you project yourself online, people know you through that lens. But if somebody is there who knows you very well and who loves you and adore you, how do you think that person will introduce you?
A friend, simply. This is my friend. This is what they will say. By the way, my name, Sadika, it means friend in English. So I really embrace, if you want, those traits. And this is how I like to be identified by others as well.
Such an unconditional relationship, right? There's
Yes.
no exchange, it's just a friendship. Beautiful.
Yes. And it comes from being human, actually.
Yeah, there's no gap by age, by gender, by location, by
True.
background. So it's just
Yeah.
friendship.
Yes.
So I like the quote you have. It says, leadership is not about position or power, it is the courage to become fully human so others can rise. And when I read your bio and I see you online and I met you in person, I felt that this is how you carry yourself. Regardless of anything, I see that you bring out your human side first. How do you do that?
What I went through during the civil war in Lebanon, I spent all my life in Lebanon. Only 5 years ago, I moved to Dubai. And I went through many atrocities, if you want, let's call them this way. A civil war is really atrocious to watch when your people kill each other. This is not an easy experience at all. And I had my own traumatic experience as a child, other than the one you read in the book. I lost lots of my friends, of family members, lots of neighbors. But the most traumatic experience was the slaughter of my 10 years old, we were 10 years old only, friend, Jana. And that was a turning point here when I suddenly noticed that there was something called enemy or something called the other. Because as Lebanese before the civil war, there was nothing called the other. We didn't know that concept, it didn't exist. And all of a sudden it erupted and it was there facing you. But I always say I was one of the lucky Lebanese that had her healing dose at an early age. For I met one of my mentors when I was 12 years old. His name is Uncle George. And he dismissed that other in my head. He wired and reframed my mindset, if you want, after, sorry, I'm going to name things by their names. After a Christian militia took the life of Jana and her family, the family was completely obliterated. And Uncle George is my dad's childhood friend, and he is a priest. And at the age of 12, we had to take refuge at his home. And this is where he every day repeated this as a mantra. I didn't understand it fully at the time, but then it became a philosophy in my life. He used to say, when you hold God in your heart, the human he created reveals itself by serving others. And then even your enemy becomes human. So these words seeped into my heart, and over the years it really became a philosophy. And it resulted in creating my NGO in 2016 back home, which is about social cohesion and peace building.
I can feel the depth of the statement. And definitely for a 10 years old, it's not possible to understand the meaning, the depth of the meaning of the statement. And now, as we grow up, we can see, relate, sense to what extent a person can think so that can empower you, push you in a position to feel that we are human first and we
Mhm.
have the godly power within us when we start serving other people.
Yes, exactly.
And as we are talking about your younger self, so if I may ask you, what part of your younger self, I know this statement, but what part of your younger self facing all these challenges shaped you to become a woman like Sadika Kebbi today?
Community service. I can say that at the age of 14, I was already a volunteer in the Red Cross.
Hmm?
And yes, and I did not miss any opportunity to serve whenever it presented itself, whether it's through the school club of community service or whether through any help that my community needed during the Civil War. So I was one of the volunteers, the younger volunteers in the Red Cross at a very young age. And this is what shaped me, and this is what shaped my humanity as well. So when you reach out for others in distress, it brings empathy, it brings compassion, it brings kindness, and it dismisses all other, if you want, kind of selfishness or egoistic self or those kind of traits. It suppresses them, and then there's the human that surfaces.
And now, when we are coming back to current situation at this time, you having international expertise and experiencing and giving back to different community, helping lots of leaders across the world. So my understanding will be like, how do you think the stories can change more than the facts?
Actually, a story is a fact. When you share your story, a personal story, we relate as human beings on the emotional level. And we are born storytellers. God has wired our brain to receive information and to receive knowledge through storytelling. And this has been the norm since the dawn of humanity. Before having all these social media platforms, and now we can connect very easily. All the information that we used to receive, it was through stories that traveled from one country to the other. And whenever you are in the presence of an audience, whether in a training room or whether on a stage as a speaker, what really bonds us is those emotions. It is true that the experience is different. Each one of us experienced life in a different way, but what brings us together are the emotions. Sad for you is the same as sad for me. And when you create that heart to heart connection, it really bridges all the gaps. You can remove all the labels, whether it's nationality or religion or race or ethnicity, all these labels just vanish. And storytelling is the best tool to connect to people because it has also a biological effect. When you hear a story, your brain starts secreting the empathetic, we call them the empathetic
Transmission.
dopamine,
Yeah.
yeah, dopamine and cortisol and all these kind of secretions. And Unconsciously, you just connect to the other person in the room.
And do you also believe that by telling story we can heal ourselves or to other people?
Yes, definitely, I believe that because when you turn your past into a story with a lesson learned, not just a story, but you have to have a morale or a lesson that you've learned through that story. Once it is a story, it's no longer living in you. It becomes gold that you can share with other people, that you can help them cross whatever you went through and make the road shorter for them. And when you share that gold, other people are very appreciative. I remember many times now recently in the Maldives, just few days back, people came up to me, especially mothers, and they said, as a mother, I couldn't but feel what you were talking about. Even fathers, all people came up just to say, thank you for sharing because you made things look much positive and much easy when you put it that way. So, yeah, definitely it's a healing process and it helps a lot.
And besides that, like if we look at the organizational leadership practices, we often observe that people are more fact focused, more the figures and numbers are more important than the story. So how do you see what the leaders are missing these days in the practical leadership activities in the workplace, in the organizations?
Yes. So, you know something, when we become, if you want, through that journey of becoming from day one, most of the leaders unfortunately forget their unmaking. They forget that moment where they were in distress, in that moment where they were in the dark. It doesn't have to be traumatic, but most of us humans, not most, all of us humans, have went through a certain experience or certain circumstances where we felt that we were stuck and we couldn't move forward. We went into kind of uh, dark days, let's call it. I don't want to go extreme, and the problem is that when you go through that journey from your unmaking, and I believe we have four stages here, there's the unmaking, and then you have the clearing, and you have the seeing, and then the becoming. So, most leaders, when they get to the becoming stage, they forget their unmaking and they start treating people as numbers, treating people as high performers. They forget that those people are also human, that sometimes a high performer might be distracted, might lose eye contact. If the leader is not present and they do not notice that this person has something that on his mind or her mind, and they reach out to have this conversation on the human level, they really, it's the ego that takes over, unfortunately, and focus is all on the KPIs and the numbers at the end of the day. But most importantly, the leader has to know when he cares for their people, everything else comes naturally. When you care and you give empathy and you really understand what is happening within your team, at the end of the day, they're going to give you back without you even asking.
That's very true. Like when we have that human connection and we value, people try to give more than we are expecting. That's very true. And I think that's where also you may bring the psychological safety, belongingness, having automatically having the accountability, responsibility automatically follows because you feel safe and you feel to give more. And often we feel like, especially these days for AI and automation, people are very, I will not say disrupted. I would say they're in a zone where there is not enough clarity what exactly they want to do, to what extent in terms of automation, and to what extent they want to continue using the humanity over automation. So that's very true. And you work with the leaders, and do you feel or think like leaders are getting more aware on this area, or you feel like there is still a lot of gap?
I can tell you that they are, once they really have this self reflection, or they reflect on what is really happening and they create that awareness, they get there. Us humans need to be reminded. It is not a bad thing to reach out for a coach or a trainer or a mentor in order to help us through the journey. But you have to be humble in some way or another first so you can reach out for that help. Some, unfortunately, I don't want to only label the leaders as that. I want to label, or I don't want to label anybody. Us people have some kind of pride sometimes that doesn't allow us to reach out and ask for help. And but once you do that, I'm sure you can find that someone who can lead you through that journey. And we all need someone. My John Maxwell, I'm a John Maxwell certified, by the way. John Maxwell is now 76 years old and he has 5 mentors still in his life. This
Yes.
is what makes you a leader, because you don't have all the knowledge, you don't have all the awareness. So reaching out for that is it would be amazing. It would be a benefit for the person and for, of course, the mentor. They would learn together and they would grow together.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have observed, especially the high level mentors, they have many mentors. They're always seeking for expansion, just the way you
True.
said. True. I'm learning a lot of things. I learned a lot of things from your chapter as well. And I know you told a little bit about your young version and your learning, and then understanding the value of being human and being engaged with the community and giving back to the community services. Now, I want to go to another direction of you being a mom, mother, and now become a leader. So, take us through with your experience or story or fact. As you said, story is a fact. And I'm like, of course it's a fact because we're not telling it from somewhere else. We're just telling what exactly happened in our life. So tell us a little bit on that side. Being a mom, how did you become a better leader today?
A mother is a leader, in my opinion, from day one.
Yeah.
Yeah, the biggest responsibility ever is to be responsible about other humans. And
Mm,
your children are independent humans. This is also something that some mothers find difficult to understand. Those children are not my children. We have a say from Jubran Khalil Jubran in Arabic. He's a very famous author and philosopher, you name it. He said that your children are the children of life. Don't belong to you. So if you once you have this mindset as a mother or as a parent, you raise your children for the future. And you raise your children, again, I repeat, as independent beings. That I'm not raising them for them to take care of me in my elderly
mm,
age or whenever I'm going through whatever. They would do this without me asking. That it will come willingly. When you give them that freedom, of course, there is no ultimate freedom. There are boundaries for everything. You have to go through the values, through the ethics, through all that. Once they really understand that and it's rooted within them, you need to let go slowly. As a mother during the civil war, it was really very tough. For every
mm.
single parent in Lebanon, it was really very tough because we had days where we were locked at home for sometimes for months. We couldn't go out because of the shelling, the explosions, whatever was happening in the outside world. So you have to be a bit creative and find ways for your to nurture your children. And I remember I mentioned it in my story. where the house was, I emptied the house. I only left bedrooms and a small living, and they turned it into a playground. They used to write on the walls, they used to slide on the kitchen floor. The huge living was turned into a football field and a basketball court. So when you create that safe space for your children, it's very important, by the way, to create a safe space for the kids, especially when you are going through war. And I believe that it's also proven in psychology and neuroscience as well that the 0 to 7 is where all the traumas, all the fears, all the negative experiences store in the amygdala. And this is what the children might carry in their adult life afterwards. And whenever something triggers that amygdala, there's this reaction, which we call it translates into fight, flight, or freeze mode. So, as a parent, we should, as leaders, know that this might affect our children. From 0 to 7 is a very sensitive age. And some people tell me, what if they're not going through civil war? There's no trauma in my child's life. But let me tell you something, that just a mother telling her child, your father will be angry, this is traumatic, or your father will not talk to you if you do this and that, this is already traumatic, and there's fear that has been installed already. So it is that sensitive. So being a mother I learned a lot from them all the way through, and they learned a lot from me. And I'm so happy that also I put them at a very early age, starting 5 years old, on the road of community service as well. They were giving back whenever we had a peace treaty or whenever we felt safe and we could venture outside, they would go to help the underprivileged. I mean,
Wow.
yeah.
And when you're talking about the amygdala and fight, freeze, and my observation from your writing, from the story that you wrote, the title is The Passage. So you started saying, the word different doesn't speak to me. It enters, it slips under my skin and takes up residence in muscles and nerve. My chest tightens as if the air has been quietly stolen. Breath thins, the heart bowls forward, reckless, searching for an edge it cannot see. Anxiety never announces itself. It comes like a hard hand over the mouth, sudden and absolute. So you started the invisible feelings, and then as I read through your story, I know what is happening on that moment. And you experienced that. I know the way you have challenged yourself and making a rational decision, even though it's an emotional and traumatic situation, your amygdala must be full on and taking over your brain, but you actually took it back and you had been following through your rational decision to face the challenge. How do you relate? Tell us a little bit more on that
Yes.
experience and how did regulated yourself holding and then navigating through your decision making.
Yes. So at the time, my son, as you read in the story, had a difficult situation. He was feverish, and his fever really called for action. It wasn't that fever that you can control or manage with medication. And at the time, civil war was ongoing, and the coastal road to Beirut was completely blocked. And I was at the time living in North Lebanon, Tripoli, which is usually it takes an hour and a half max to get to Beirut, to the capital. So at the time, There was no way but to take the mountainous road in order to reach the American hospital, which was in Beirut, to help my son and find the right medication and understand what was happening. So I took that. As a mother, there is no logic. As a mother, there's this instinct that my child is in danger, he's in threat, and I really need to do whatever it takes in order to get there to understand what is happening. And I made the decision, and it took us 8 hours or more to get to the green line. And there was a green line at the time slicing the two Beiruts, separating West Beirut from East Beirut. And this green line, there was always snipers stationed there just to shoot at people, innocent people, no matter who's going through that. So another traumatic experience here was also taking place, getting my two children, because I had to take my daughter. There was no one, I couldn't leave her back in Tripoli. I had to take her with me. And we had to cross that passage under those bullets. And a 15 minutes walk took us also from 6 p.m. to 11 p.m. to get to the safety of my parents' house. And I wasn't aware that another fear and another trauma was going to take place in that hospital again. So when the pediatrician was just examining my child, and all of a sudden he stops his hands on the right side of his belly, and he says, "There's something different in your child. From my touch, I can feel it." And here, I don't know, it just it's the amygdala. It was just triggered, and my brain started wandering, and I was all of a sudden, it was cancer, chemotherapy, my son's future, everything was unfolding in front of me just because of that word different. Forget about the long road that we took, forget about the snipers, forget about the civil war. This was another level of fear for a mother. And I was really hijacked. And then the next day, doctor comes and he says that they discovered that he was born with one single kidney. This is the right one. But the shock was that the the passage between the kidney and the bladder was reversed, and they needed to operate, or else he would have died of poisoning, and I wouldn't have known the cause of his death. So it was building up all through those 2 days. And then the operation took place, everything was fine. My son healed, but my body didn't. The body holds the score. I don't know if you read that book. It's a very powerful book. I forgot the name of the psychologist who wrote it, but really, yes, your body holds the score. You feel it. Each time this word was pronounced, I was hijacked again. My breath would tighten, the whole thing, the whole story would unfold again in front of my eyes, and I couldn't help it. And I fell into that vicious cycle of anxiety attacks. And anxiety attacks feel like having a heart attack. You experience the same pain, you experience the same symptoms as a heart attack. And for a while, I was just laying in bed doing nothing. And I couldn't tend to my family. I couldn't tend to my children. I couldn't tend to my hygiene even. I remember the first week I spent the whole week just lying in bed doing nothing and experiencing these attacks and feeling like the only thought that controlled my mind was, what would happen to my children if I die? Then I pulled myself. It's faith that keeps you going, no matter what your faith is as a human being. It's that faith in your creator and faith in life that keeps you going. And that moment happened when I opened my Holy Quran, and there was this verse that really hit me. With hardships comes ease. With hardships, not after hardships. And here it got me reflecting, oh my God, why am I focusing on the hardship? Where is the ease? And here I started wondering, and this is when the clearing starts happen. The first one is the, as I mentioned at the beginning, is the unmaking, when you are lost, when you find yourself in the dark and you wish you go back to the norm before what you have experienced. And then comes this clearing where you are in an empty space. And I felt like I was between the vigilant mother and the grateful mother. There was these two forces pulling me, and the vigilant didn't want to let go. I'm the one taking care of my kids. I'm the one creating that safe space. I'm the one who should be scanning the future all the time. And there was the grateful mother telling me, for God's sake, you should be grateful you made it. You made it all through that mountainous road, then through that snipers, then through the operation for your son. His life was saved. Come on, shed this version of the vigilant mother and become this grateful mother. You would feel much better. And this is when the seeing happens and you start finding meaning again and purpose in life. Oh my God, those children are independent beings, and I should really create that safe space for them. And then I also found purpose in service again. I started at 14, as I told you. And then
Yes.
I was like, Sadika, come on. People need you. Your kids need you. Pull yourself up. And I won't hide from you. At the time, I sought the help of a psychologist and a psychiatrist. And this
And
is,
I want to read two lines from here because this is how I
yes,
felt so connected. And you said, later, alone in the stairwell, my body finally folded. I cried the
yes,
fear I had postponed, the terror I had swallowed, the strength I had borrowed, because mothers do not get to be afraid when their children are watching. I'm like, and this is the true message you are holding. I'm the mother and I'm the grateful one. I want to look at that side, not the one who is still holding the pain and the negative experiences.
yes, yes. This is what pulls you up. And it's our human nature to fall into the negative. But we really have to make the effort to look at the light that is at the end of the tunnel, as we say. And this is how life is. And I believe that the learning happens when you are in that dark moment. And this is shaping you to become who you are. After the seeing, there's this becoming that happens. And you shed an old version and you embrace another version. And this is ongoing. This is the cycle of life. This is how we grow from one to better versions in our humanity along the way.
Very rightly said, and it's an evolved, better version of ourselves. And that's where you also mentioned that you came back to the service leadership approach, more practicing humanity over any other kind of leadership. So you also said service not is not an obligation but a purpose. To do good was to act with presence, with compassion, with excellence, especially when life has wounded you. You have your own wound, but you still have your presence for other people, your compassion, and your this excellence towards other people, helping other people. And what I realized that it doesn't cost anything. It doesn't ask you to give anything. You just can do it from wherever you are with nothing, right? And I would just want to ask you to reflect on that mindset and how do you hold that mindset?
Yes. I mentioned previously the trap when you become or you become that better version. The trap is to forget your unmaking. If you forget that, it's your ego that takes over and you become very self centered. And the focus is about your success. It's about me and not about we. When does the shift happen? Is when you ground yourself in reality and you tell yourself that at the end of the day, we're humans. Before being leaders, before being mothers, before being anything, we are human beings. And whatever I go through, any other human being can go through and can face. And those ups and downs, we all go through them. There is no straight line in life. And I always, if you want, I always use this metaphor. I say that life is exactly like our heartbeats. We are alive when we go up and down, and we die on the monitor, it becomes a straight line. Can we live in a straight line? Comfort zone all the time, what's going to happen? You're dead alive. And when you are on the top, everything's fine. There is no need to create, there is no need to innovate, there is no need to become with a solution to anything. But when you go down, and I call it falling forward, when you are down, you really, this is where the reflection happens. This is where the creation happens. This is where the innovation happens. And this is when a new version is born. And you have a new strategy, a new plan, whatever, you name it. So it is beautiful to be down there if you really know how to handle it. The first thing that needs to be done is release. Because as humans, if we bottle up, we're going to collapse at some point. So the first thing is to release. Some people release it maybe facing the mirror. They talk to themselves. Maybe they go into their room and they shout, they scream, they cry. You have to release it in some way or another. You can release to close friends, to a sister, to a brother, anyone whom you can trust. And then once you release, the fog that really is controlling your mind clears away. And then you can focus again. You can reflect. So releasing, reflecting, and then you can reframe. You reframe your thoughts and you try to see the positive in what happened. Because ease comes with the hardship, not after the hardship. And then after reframing, you just redesign your strategy, redesign your life, redesign whatever. And then you rehearse again. And again, we go through the journey, we put it into rehearsal. If it succeeds, it succeeds. If we fail again, we go
Yeah.
through the process again. And
Oh,
this
I
is
love
how
that.
we do.
I love the
Yeah.
framework. Reflection doesn't come when we're not in a deep, and that's where the creativity borns if you know how to handle that. And then from reflection, we relearn and rewire. And I think the rewiring is the new version, like you said, the evolving to the new version. And practicing, like you said, it has to be again and again, because we have a tendency to go back to the older version, behaving the
True.
same even after the learning, even after the hardship. We try to forget that, and we have a tendency to act and behave in the same way. And this is a practice. I love that framework. And it definitely, I know there is a back neuroscience, there is a reprogramming happening there, the threat state, reward state. So, do we want to stay in the threat state when we're in the deep, or we want to look at the way to go to the reward state? That's where
Yeah.
the creativity happens. I'm like, very beautifully, you reframed the R, 4R framework, the 5R framework is,
Right. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
excellent.
Yes.
And you also said the leadership, your defined leadership philosophy is freedom without boundaries builds courage. And it gives children safety to explore, confidence to create, and strength to rise. So I can sense that, like when you're in the dark zone, if you get the freedom and if you don't feel the boundary, you automatically feel safe, even though you don't have the luxury, you don't have the comfort, but you still internally, mentally, psychologically, you feel safe. And you build bit by bit the confidence to create something new, to come up with a new idea, and the strength to rise.
Yes, definitely.
And linking to that, you also mentioned that a child raised with compassion grows into an adult who heals the world. You kept saying that we are not having a ownership of the child is my son, my daughter. We're actually raising them and then giving back to the world so that they can keep serving more people. And this is such a beautiful way to see the legacy. It's such an unconditional way, which doesn't have any ego.
Yeah.
So I can see two things. Like one is my own son, daughter, another one is the young generation, right? Those who are younger than me, to some extent, I have a responsibility to pass the right message to them so that they can rise and they can start serving to other people.
Yes, true. And I'm blessed to see already the legacy being translated. I'll share a story of my son that I spoke about in the passage in She Rises. I went back to university, he was doing his BA and I was doing my MA. We were together in the same university. And then he graduated a year before I did. And the next year, I went to the registrar to pay my registration fees. And there's the guy, the cashier, he was like, how does Abdul Qadir relate to you? And I was like, he's my son. And he was, I'm sure you don't know what he did when he was here at the university. And I was, oh my God, what did he do? And I immediately, your mind goes to the negative. And he was, no, relax. There is nothing negative about what I'm saying. I just want to tell you that Abdul Qadir, or Abudi, I call him, graduated last year with a student whom he funded. And I didn't know that. It was a student who couldn't afford paying the university from his allowance, and plus he worked at the university at the same time to raise the money. And the university, by the way, the cashier continued and he said, the university noticed that he was doing all this effort to help this person graduate and have a degree. We made a 50% discount for him. Yeah, and I feel very proud when I hear those stories. I hear a lot of them about my children from people, not from them. As I told you, I already see the legacy before I pass. This is the beauty of leadership as well. Leadership should, as a leader, you should live your legacy and not wait for after life for this legacy to be translated. So I'm really so proud of them. And yeah,
It's such a blessing. And when
it
you
is.
hear it from other people, it's such a great blessing. I
Yes.
want to read a few things from the book. I just want the audience to listen because these few lines are very powerful and I don't want them not to listen. So you said, that night I walked back inside, not with clarity, but with presence. See the power. I'm not clear, but I'm present. I whispered to myself, I release fear. I make room for faith. And it's not a mantra, but a decision. Then I felt, oh my God, this is more powerful. It's a decision. From now on, I will only feel the faith in me, not the fear. Since then, fear still visits, but I greet it like an old teacher, not a captor. I say, you may walk beside me, but faith is holding my hand now. How beautiful is that? And then you are talking about your new chapter when you moved in Dubai and you graduated, the story you just told, your children are doing well, and the vision you had inside of you and the area or location you were before was not allowing you to bring that vision out to give that back to the world. And now, what I can see, you're going to other countries, speaking, sharing your story on the stage, and inspiring so many people, and sharing all this information on social medias. And people are reading, like me, reading your chapter. I'm very much moved with your story. And I'm like,
Thank,
why should I feel why should I feel like I have a lack of anything? Why don't I start looking at how many things I already have and how many ways I can use them? I can stop counting. It'll be unlimited things that I can still do with whatever I have. This is so powerful.
thank you,
And
Aisha.
with those understanding and the wisdom, I want to ask you a few definition. So how would you define leadership?
Leadership is influence and service. Influence, of course, in the good way, not the manipulation
Yeah.
thingy, but yes, in a very good way. You have to walk the way to influence people and to have people that are, I wouldn't like to say followers because all of us are leading in some way or another. All of us, children, teenagers, adults, if they look around them, at least there is one person around them that is influenced by them. So, this role model that is walking the way and showing how you can be that version if you really want to grow and become that person, this is the influence I'm talking about. And
Wow.
then service. The pinnacle of leadership is service and giving back. So, how do you know that you have become? It's when you start giving your gold. This gold I learned from many experiences I went through or the life that, and now I say sometimes some people hear me say I'm grateful for the Civil War. Yes, I'm grateful because it made me who I am. Unfortunately, it's a messy, terrorizing experience, but when you turn it into gold and you start sharing those lessons, this is when you truly become that leader. You're you would like to leave the legacy afterwards for people to understand that it's about service, simply. It's about giving back.
Very few people has got that. They're always blamed. I don't have enough time. I don't have enough money. I don't have much. So what can I give back? It's not, that's why I liked your statement the most, because it's not giving back the resources, it's giving the presence,
Yes,
and which
it's
doesn't
giving
cost
your learning.
anything.
Yes, nothing at all. And then you give hope to people that if you made it, they will make it.
So then you take off the fear from them and you're giving them the faith.
Exactly. Faith and hope, because it's hope that keeps you going actually, and faith as well together. Faith in your humanity, faith in yourself, faith in your creator, faith in life, faith in people, you name it, all kinds of faith. It's not just faith, it's faith
Why?
in every. Yes.
Okay, so the next question I want to know, what does rising means to you?
Rising is embracing the human within us. This human has the negative and has the positive. We have to have this courage to face it. We have to have the courage to hold that mirror and tell yourself, Sadika, you're being selfish today. What happened? Sadika, you're being cruel today. What happened? If we don't do that, there's no rising. There is no rising. It's facing your blind spots. It's facing your dark side, let's call it, because we're humans and we have the dark and we have the light within us. They are here. And once you face them, you can rise above everything else.
True. And to me, like when you said it's about the darkness, and I see that rising is also illumination, the light. It's you're slowly moving from the darkness to the light.
True, true.
So I want to know if you think my life is a book and you want to write your next chapter, what will be the title of that chapter?
My motto in life and the motto of my consultancy is an inspiration from the Quran, Kun Fayakun. These are the Arabic for be to become. So my next book maybe would be this would be the title, Be You to Become Who You Were Created to Be. Because if I don't embrace that human here, I cannot embrace the other humans. And I cannot become who I am supposed to become. Because
It's
also I believe that purpose precedes existence, meaning God created my purpose, then He created Sadika to fulfill it. He created Aisha's purpose first, and then He created her to fulfill it. And this is what makes us unique. But unfortunately, the minute we're born, this purpose is being buried under the sand in some way or another. Parents already have drawn the road for their children, their future, they have plans for them, the schooling, you name it. And then you go to school, teachers focus on your weaknesses. They don't focus on those special seeds that the creator have planted inside of you. I was a failure at math. I
Mhm.
was nil, just nil. And all my parents' investment went into math. I mean, extra courses, extra tutors, extra whatever. And I barely made it. If this investment went into, I have the creative side, if it went into my creativity, into my writing, into my that side of me, I would have maybe reached my becoming at an earlier stage than reaching it 40 years later. You know what I mean?
True. Yeah, very true. And the way you said, we get so puzzled, and you mentioned the brain fog is so heavy, we don't see what's the purpose. And I
Exactly.
want to mention here for a fish, they know how to swim, they don't have to think going to school learning swimming. For birds, they know the fly, how to fly, they don't have to go to the flying school. So similarly for human, for us, if we work on our purpose, if we do not interrupt our natural, I would say, the unique side of us, our gift, our talent, then it should go through, it should flow easily. It shouldn't be hard. It shouldn't be based on the grade or the certificate or the school, university, how many degrees we have got, what is my, did I get the promotion? It would never be limited by all this validation.
Yes. So true.
Such a powerful message, Sadika. And I know I can
Thank
talk
you.
to you hours after hours. I want to ask you, like, how do you expect people to connect with you? What are the platform you prefer if someone wants to connect with you?
I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Instagram and Facebook and TikTok. I'm everywhere, so they can reach out on any of those platforms. I'll be more than happy to help and cater to whatever need they have.
The last
Thanks, Ayesha.
question that I ask to everybody is through the lens of my message called Mindspeed. And we believe that leadership is built through brain, heart, and nerve. So, what does it mean to you?
Yes, it builds from the heart first. You know, there's a new research saying that the heart has its own brain. I don't know if you've read anything about that. And I truly believe it's the heart that beats first. You notice it in our relationships. Some people, when they walk into the room, it's your heart that bounces first. Whether you feel that I want to reach out to that person, I want to hug them, I want to have a relationship with those people. And sometimes your heart tells you to take that step away from them. So I believe, and this is why I'm called the human centered, I call it human centered leadership or heart centered leadership, because it's your heart that gives you that first signal. And then definitely we need the logic. We need to have proof to that feeling that we sensed at the beginning. And then you start your observation. You start, when I say observation through the emotional intelligence lens. Okay, I need to have this balance between heart and brain. I cannot put the wrong person in a position which they cannot handle. Why is this person not performing the way I'm expecting? It's simply either they lack a skill, either they lack, as I said, it's not, they were not born for it, maybe. So there has to be this balance between heart and mind in order to lead. And in order, most importantly, is self leadership. If I can't lead myself, I cannot lead others. So this is where the whole thing starts. So I need heart and brain to come together. For me, as you said, we need facts as well. I cannot just use my emotions. And this is because if you only rely on your emotions, there will be injustice. And if you only rely on your logic, there will be injustice. You have to bring both together.
Thank you so much, Sadika. And I want to take
Right.
some pause with your wisdom. And I believe it's all about inside out, the way you say through your message and the way you show the light to us to build identity, to build emotional intelligence through storytelling, to become an unforgettable leader. From Mindspeed Conversation, this is Ayesha, and this is where we explore how to have a leadership where we can align between our brain, heart, and nerve. And I want to see you in our next episode.